Hey folks, a couple of people asked me to make a tutorial on my plywood props, so I thought I'd just take a couple minutes and do that. I just threw this together, so sorry if it's not perfect. Real quick, who is Lights and Ekman? That's my show. I've been doing this since 2018. I'm in Batavia, Illinois, so most of you locally I've met, hopefully. If not, I'd love to meet you soon. Um, I've been doing pixels since 2018. I still incorporate AC lighting. I've got about 10, 15,000 LEDs that are on AC controllers that are integrated into the Pixel Show. See my videos and see what that looks like. I do try to make as much of my own stuff as possible. I like to reuse traditional Christmas stuff, deer and angels and things you can get on clearance. It's amazing what you can do with some traditional stuff with pixels, or I just like to build my own. I like to do both Halloween and Christmas. I love the fog machine at Halloween. I love the way that the Halloween looks. Different color palette for sequencing. This year, between Halloween and Christmas, I'll have probably 80,000 pixels. I didn't know where I could actually add more, but I think I was able to add 12 or 13,000 this year. I'm still trying to avoid the light pollution. I did start a business last year, LOE Sequences. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. All my sequences are there. These are my links for my videos, both my personal and LOE Sequences videos that are in the deck as well. Halloween show starts on October 6th. It's 51 days away. I'm a little bit stressed out, to be totally honest. All right, let's talk about plywood props. I personally could not find Quero that I wanted from any of the Quero vendors for the kind of props I wanted, specifically this witch, or for my Santa stuff, my Santa sleigh, my fully populated reindeer with 500 pixels each. So I make my own. I make my own pixels. I make my own stuff out of plywood. A sheet of 5/8 inch plywood is $30. That's pretty cheap. You can cut a lot of props out of a single sheet of plywood. I do recommend 5/8 inch. If you use 1/2 inch, it's going to be too weak. You could stress it when you pick it up; it'll snap, and that's really disappointing. I also recommend using step bits. I'll talk about that more, but using step bits instead of regular drill bits because it doesn't chew up the plywood. Get outdoor rated paint. Exterior paint is great, and then find the images you want, and then go make them. Find your image, right? So this is just something I found for the witch that I wanted. Transpose that somehow. I make a grid in PowerPoint. Assuming I'm going to do a 4-foot sheet of plywood, I just make 16 squares. 16 squares equals, at 3 inches each is your 48 inches on the plywood. And you're basically going to print that. And then you're going to go out to your plywood, mark those same squares with T-square, right? So make those 3-inch squares up and down your plywood. Take your picture and do a little bit of freehand art. The good news about this is it doesn't have to be perfect, right? But by doing square by square, you can pretty much line up very easily what the image was that you wanted to the image on the plywood, and then you just got to get out a jigsaw, maybe a drill for the interior cuts, and jigsaw it out. Be very careful not to jigsaw parts that are too thin if you're expecting to put pixels in them, because they will break if you don't need enough space and your plywood between the edges and the holes, or you put too many holes too close together, the plywood's going to break, and that really sucks. Now, as far as the holes go, I recommend a minimum of a 1.5 inch spacing. Most of the time, I just measure that out with a pencil, draw it out. When you do things like singing faces, I have to get much closer together. But be careful not to, again, make the holes too close to the edge. And don't cut your wood too thin. This broom handle is almost too thin. You cannot pick this up on my big witch by the broom handle because it'll probably break. You could use that 1/2 inch or 12 meter drill bit, but I really find it rips up the plywood, both the front and especially the back. When the drill bit goes into the back of the plywood, it just destroys the plywood. The step bits, this 1/2 inch bit and this 3/4 inch bit, don't damage the wood at all. Now this picture shows the bits with the painted prop. I definitely recommend drilling and then sanding and then painting. So from the perspective of what that looks like, you're going to draw those out. You can see here, you can see the shapes that I drew. Again, kind of risky here on this broomstick. I should have made the wood a little wider, probably. Same thing with tips of hats or whatnot. But basically, draw it out, draw out your pixel holes, and be prepared to create a lot of sawdust. Now, when you drill it out, before I get to when you drill it out, if you're going to do singing faces, I'm not going to do a singing face tutorial. It's tricky. If you don't know how to do it, you're going to have to research it. The key is you need to know the mouth shapes. You need to know the mouth shapes, and then you need to actually map them out somehow to create the actual pixel holes that you're going to drill out. Definitely want to do some planning on it first. You probably want to model in X-Lights. on a dummy prop and make sure that whatever you come up with for the singing face is going to work, because once you've drilled it, you're kind of stuck with what you have, and if it doesn't look right, well, then it won't look right. So I'm sure everybody will have their own way of doing it. I'm not going to get into the tutorial, but I was never a big fan of singing faces, and last year I decided I liked them. So the props that I'm making, like the Santa and the sleigh here, and the witch, the big witch, all have singing faces on them now. Now, when you're drilling the props, again, I would do this before you paint. The half-inch drill step bit is what you're going to use for the front. That's going to be, the lights out, facing out. Do not go all the way in. If you go all the way in with this half-inch drill bit, the hole's going to be too big. It'll be a half-inch, and it's a 12 millimeter pixel that will slide right through a half-inch hole. And that sucks if these holes are too big and they don't fit snugly, because then they're just going to keep falling out, or you got to glue them in or something else. Now, on a 5/8 inch piece of plywood, it's going to be really hard. First of all, this step bit won't drill all the way through because it's a step bit. Two, it's going to be really hard if you just use the 12 millimeter or half-inch drill bit to push the pixel through 5/8 inch. You're going to damage the pixel. It's going to be too loose, or it's going to be too tight, and you're not going to be able to get it into the hole all the way. So what I do is I flip it over, and on the flip, use that 3/4 inch drill bit, the step drill bit. And as you can see here, again, this is the depth that I go to. You're not going all the way in. You're basically going in until you get the resistance from the first hole. So it's a little bit of trial and error. You probably want to practice on some scrap wood. Yeah, push the pixels in as you're going through the day, and your arm is getting tired from pushing the drill. Unless you have a drill press that can actually work around a piece of wood this big, that you can set to the perfect height. Test every 10 or 15 holes to make sure you're not going too deep, you're not making it too loose. But by doing this, it makes it super easy to put the pixel in, right? Because it's basically will guide the pixel directly in, and if you haven't gone too deep on either direction, it's going to be perfectly snug. Worst case, pushing it with a pair of pixel pliers, which is maybe best case, but if you're going to use pixel pliers, be careful not to break the pixels, because if you squeeze them too hard, or you could damage the cord, or you could actually break the board. One thing to note, because I used the step bits, notice how smooth the plywood is. There was no damage to the plywood on either side. Now, after you've drilled everything up, but before you paint, take a picture. You want a picture of the holes, specifically the dark holes on the wood background, because when you put it into X-Lights and you're going to create your custom mapping, it's a whole lot easier to be able to see the holes and then put the numbering on them, as opposed to looking at the painted prop and trying to do it that way. But I'm not going to get into on this video how to actually create the custom models in X-Lights. I'm sure people know how to do that. And then you're going to paint. I definitely recommend exterior paint. I recommend doing it thick with a roller, probably a couple coats. Make sure you get both sides, and make sure you get the edges specifically. If you don't get the edges, that's where the water damage is going to get in, and it can cause the glue to dissolve and the ply to separate. And then all the work you did on the prop is going to be crap after a year or two. For my Halloween stuff, I use fluorescent paint. So after I painted everything black, I've got a bunch of different fluorescent paints, for the flames on the cauldron, for the soup in the cauldron, and for her face and hands, and I got purple up there on the top, purple and gold for her hat band. The other paint, like the broom paint, that wasn't. And then be careful when you're masking. One thing you'll have to think about when you're masking, and maybe it's layer 2 is unmask, I'm not sure. But when you're masking, make sure you mask well, because the spray paint will drift, and you'll end up with drifted colors on your black wood. And if you're using fluorescent lighting, that might look challenging. Ultimately, this was the end result after I painted. I now have the cauldron. You can see the flames that I put in. Again, all this was freehand, which is good enough, right? You've got the witch, you've got the 2 flying witches, the third one was already done. But it's pretty exciting. I mean, I think they look really, really good with black light. Then you're going to go ahead and push those pixels in, like I said before. Push them in. If you drill the holes just right, it's going to be great. Again, use those pixel pliers. Don't damage the board. But the nice thing is, err on the side of drilling too tight, because when you're pushing the pixels in, if they're too tight, you can just take the half-inch drill bit, and okay, I can't push it in this one hole. Use that drill bit and just push in a drill bit just a little bit. Just take out a little bit more wood through the back this time, until you can actually fit the pixel hole in and be snug. On the Big Witch, I probably had 25 holes that I had to drill out just a little bit more. Either the wood wasn't drilled out all the way, or the paint made it hard to push the pixel through. But either way, it's an easy fix. So always err on the side of don't drill too deep, because you can easily fix it later when you're actually pushing the pixels. It just makes a little sawdust wherever you're drilling. And then, like, you know, if you're gonna push the pixels and you're doing something as complicated as a singing face, I absolutely recommend doing the mapping in X-Lights and then drawing it out and then pushing the pixels. Okay, finished product. If you saw the video, cool. If not, you know, the key here I'm still trying to decide. The singing witch with the black light on, I think looks good sometimes. I think looks bad other times. This is with the black light on. This is with the black light off. So I'm gonna have the black light sequence with my AC lighting. It won't always be on, but I think it does add to the element sometimes. And this is kind of what she looked like from the perspective of, you know, what sequence running. So that's what I got. Hopefully this was helpful. Check out my personal stuff, Lights on Ekman. My Facebook page, like and follow if you want. You can see my videos. I've got a video on all my house videos for the last year or two are on YouTube, and my older stuff's on Vimeo. There's some nice tutorials out there for things like Pixel Forest. And of course, I'm going to throw a plug in for LOE Sequences. Check it out if you want to see what's going on. Specifically, my Lights on Ekman. You know, I did my show last year. I didn't quite hit 100,000 views. It was kind of sad. But this had, you know, all my entire Christmas show, and then a bunch of my Halloween stuff. If you want to take a look at it, like I said, Vimeo is the older stuff. But there are definitely some tutorials out here that might be interesting. And then LOE Sequences, both the store as well as the YouTube channel. If you want to see the stuff that's coming up, the one that's playing in the video I shared last night is this one, which doesn't have the witch in it because nobody else will have my witch. But hey, singing faces are singing faces. All right, that's what I got. I'm not even going to edit the video. I'm just going to post it. Thanks, everybody. Good luck with your show planning. We'll talk to you soon.